It is quite a gruesome discovery for an employee to find a body in the dumpster instead of the usual trash. While on his usual route, a trash collector from Silver State Disposal found the body of a woman in the dumpster behind the Vaughn's grocery store located at East Charleston in January 1994. Dead was Pearl Wilson Ingram, a 35-year-old resident of Las Vegas, Nevada. Her body was partially nude, indicating sexual assault and murder. Ingram's younger sister, Teresa Board, recounts that her body was found partially disrobed from the waist down inside the dumpster behind the supermarket.
January 11th, 1994. My sister was in a garbage dumpster.
On the wee hours of the morning on January 11th, 1994, a garbage disposal employee was alarmed to find the body of a woman in the dumpster located at 4440 East Charleston Boulevard in Las Vegas. Ingram's body was partially nude with trash debris placed over her body in an effort to conceal her. An autopsy was completed, and the Clark County medical examiner ruled that the cause of Ingram's death was due to strangulation and the manner of death a homicide. The autopsy also identified missing teeth from Ingram's mouth and abrasions on the bridge of her nose and above the eye. Pearl Wilson Ingram was also known as Pinky. Those that knew her remembers an educated mother who was at times very humorous. 2 years prior to the murder of Pearl Ingram, there was a similar homicide case that occurred in the same East Charleston Boulevard area. The connection to Pearl's case was not known to investigators. A Las Vegas resident who was walking his dog found the body of a 31-year-old female in the desert area. East of the Montgomery Ward's retail store at the location of 875 East Charleston Boulevard laid the nude body of Lori Ann Perera, a mother of 3. Based on the evident wounds, it appears that Lori was severely beaten and sexually assaulted. On Friday morning of December 11, 1992, the body of Lori Ann Perera was found in the desert area of East Charleston Boulevard in Las Vegas, Nevada. Her body appeared to have ligature marks on both ankles and wrists, and it appeared that tape had been placed over her mouth. The Clark County medical examiner ruled Perera's cause of death as asphyxia due to manual strangulation and blunt force trauma to the head. The manner of death was ruled a homicide. Lori was a loving daughter, a girl's mom. As she had 3 daughters, she was a sister and a friend. Her death left many questions. Investigators were facing a brick wall, as there were no leads or suspect identified in either case. Both cases eventually went cold. Notwithstanding, as the years went by, these 2 cases have been reviewed by numerous Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department detectives to find or develop new evidence. In 2007, an unknown DNA profile was identified from a sperm fraction from a rectal swab.
Detectives identified a sperm fraction from a DNA swab recovered at the time of her autopsy.
This was found during the autopsy on Lori in 1992. This profile was entered into CODIS. Just a few years later, in July 2012,
detectives identified additional DNA evidence from the original sexual assault kit.
A skin swab taken from Ingram's body during the autopsy in 1994 and was entered into CODIS. The Metropolitan PD Homicide Section was notified on that same day of a CODIS hit. This was where a connection was made between the 2 cases. The DNA from an unknown contributor was a hit for the 2 homicides. Police could establish that the same person committed both murders. This was the beginning of a huge breakthrough for the unanswered questions regarding both homicides. Investigators established a link between the 2 cases that otherwise would have not been connected. In the summer of 2022, LVMPD cold case investigators pursued a genealogical investigation to possibly determine a preliminary suspect. The research was performed by Othram's in-house genetic genealogy team. Their results produced a preliminary suspect, Eddie George Snowden, Jr., from East Charleston Boulevard, born in January 1937. From prior criminal history, detectives learned that Snowden lived in many surrounding cities.
Records check on Snowden revealed that he had lived at the 2800 block of East Charleston during the time of both murders. It also appears from Snowden's criminal history that he lived from the 1950s to the 1970s in the Fresno area of California, as well as several surrounding cities to include Sacramento, Santa Cruz, Madera, Merced, Woodland, and Watsonville, California.
To make Snowden Jr. a viable suspect, investigators needed his DNA to prove that he murdered and sexually assaulted both women. They reached out to his family with the help of the Fresno Police Department. Soon enough, they were able to obtain familial reference DNA from one of Snowden's biological family members to confirm they indeed had the right suspect. Investigators were able to match DNA samples provided by the family. This was done through the funding of a philanthropic group called the Vegas Justice League. Lieutenant Jason Johansson from the Metropolitan Police Department told reporters at a press conference that Eddie George Snowden Jr. was our suspect. However, Snowden was not brought to justice as investigators learnt that he had passed away in 2017, 5 years prior to them solving the case. He died of natural causes at the age of 80. Jason Johansson believed the implementation of additional resources for the cold case team led to both homicides being solved. These added resources expanded bandwidth of the number of cold cases they were able to review. Johansson did not find any other CODIS hits for Snowden in the area of Las Vegas. He, however, urged different cities to review their cold cases in the areas where Eddie Snowden had lived. Investigators found he had a criminal history over the years, but none as serious as the crime of murder. The cold case team believes that Snowden was motivated by sexual gratification, as in both cases sexual assault led to murder. In solving her sister's murder, Teresa Board was appreciative of the much-needed closure.
We'd like to thank you very, very much for giving my family closure.
The eldest daughter of Lori, Desiree Copping, wrote a letter after the murder and sexual assault of her mother was solved. My mother was a beautiful person who did not deserve to have her life ended at only 31 years old. No one deserves to have their life taken. She can now rest peacefully, knowing that her death will not remain unsolved. To the families that are going through the heartache of a cold case, please do not give up hope. Technology is advancing rapidly. Your time for closure is possible.